Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the session on building communities that last. So, let me introduce our today's speaker, Juan Pablo Flores, who is the program manager of GitHub Education. So, if you heard about the famous GitHub Campus Expert program or GitHub Student Developer Pack, he's the one who manages these stuff. So, shoot him with questions, and it's your time, Juan.
Awesome. So thank you everyone for joining today. As Safnar just said, I'm Juan Pablo Flores. I'm a program manager at the GitHub Education team, where my work is to help students worldwide to be able to grow or create communities that would help their colleagues or friends to develop technical skills and non-technical skills to excel in the industry. This is going to be a very interactive, or I try to make it interactive talk. So please make sure to have your hands on the keyboard in case I make any question. And before I start, I just want to get to know a little bit more about you folks. So if you are, let me know if you are currently part of a community and what is your role at the community. And this will let me know more or less what kind of an audience that we have here today joining us. Okay, so let's start by understanding the reason behind a community. And we have found, so through this journey, through campus experts and getting to know folks like Safnar and Shamad, we have found four main reasons why people like to build or be part of a community. The first one is people want to feel or have a sense of belonging. So being part of a broader project, of a broader group of people is something that people would like or really like to be part of. The second one is networking. So trying to find or building social capital, which is basically getting to know people who is aligned to what you are working on and that can help you reach out to decision takers and makers is another of the reasons why people like to build communities. Exchange, and in exchange, this has to do with negotiating and interchanging goods, physical or non-physical. So if you're here today, probably you come here in an exchange of probably getting to know a little bit more how to start building your own community. And a shared interest. So one of the key components is that people are aligned towards one goal or towards one specific thing that they like. And having this shared interest helps to have something in common within your own community and start building on top of that. Now, for communities, and this is in two different ways. First of all, this is for communities that are new or that communities are already made, but that could potentially look for ways in which they can improve their community. I have found there's four main community stages. The first one is setting a foundation. The second one is just doing things. The third one is spreading word, and the fourth is passing on the baton. So let's start with setting a foundation. Setting a foundation, it's a key component of any community. It can happen in a very formal and structured way, or it can, but generally speaking, it happens informally. So for example, you build your community or you want to start gathering people around a certain topic. Probably you do not think about the topics or the things that we'll be talking in a few minutes, but you can start doing this as your community has grown, or if you do it from the beginning, it can really help you out to start establishing what the community will do. So here what we'll look forward is to help you analyze your context, set a clear direction and goals, understand why people join your events, and define your community persona. So let's start with analyzing your community. And to analyze your community, what we normally look forward to is that you understand which are the resources that you have at hand, and which are also some of the roadblocks that you might find as you develop your community within a particular region or a particular city. Some of the questions that I can help you out with when you are analyzing your context is getting to know which venues are available. And this is very particular to student communities. So make a list of all the venues that you could have available, or right now, since the pandemic hit, probably thinking about what online venues you could use. For example, different platforms. Right now we're using Google Meets, but there's Zoom, there's Hopin, there's StreamYard. So understanding which venues or where you can host these events is key for you to start reaching out for those resources. Then understanding how many interested members can you get. And this has to do with how big, for example, your local community is. How many people are interested in the same thing that you are building towards your community for, you can find around that context. Or if you're organizing an online event, how big it can get. Then make a list of which resources you need. For example, if you are organizing a meetup, what resources do you need for a meetup? Probably, I don't know, pizzas and drinks and some snacks. If you're organizing a hackathon, probably you will need not only a venue, but you will also need internet connectivity, electricity, tables and chairs. So knowing which resources you will be needing, not only from your university, but in general, is key for you to start planning the future ahead for your community. In terms of people, who can you connect with in the industry so that they can give a really cool talk or they can help you out in case you start finding some roadblocks? Who can support your idea and who can join your community? Who can be part of your team within this community that you're building? Another key component is sponsors. Who are some potential sponsors, and we really we help students find local sponsors. Of course, having big companies such as Microsoft or GitHub or the fan companies is great for your event to probably like get credentials and make it look more serious. But my recommendation is also try reaching out to some local communities, some local technological communities that will allow you to not only promote the work that people around your city are doing, but also to promote that talent that is graduating from your college will end up in one of these companies in case that's part of the plan that they have. Understand what the sponsors are looking for, and there are different sponsors for this. Some of them want to help grow a community of a certain interest in their country or in their city. Some of them are looking for recruiting new folks to their companies. So understanding which are some of the interests that these companies are having will help you to provide a better proposal of what they're looking for and align that with your community so that they can start supporting you. In terms of risks, sometimes we don't consider risk when we're doing communities, but basically just analyze what can go wrong. What happens if your main venue closes? What are some second plans that you could have so that this doesn't affect the community? In other topics, for example, how can you solve variability within your community? What if someone leaves, or what if someone misbehaves in your community? So analyzing also a risk will allow you to have a second plan that you can apply when any of this happens. And probably when you are thinking about these risks, you might not think it's something very valuable until you go through one of them. Now, something that is key to any community is understanding who you want to have in your community. So are you looking for, if you're building a new community in your college, what is it going to be about? Is it going to be about mobile or web development, about machine learning? Do you want it to be like very specific towards one topic, which will allow you to get deep dive into these topics, or you want it to make it more general so that people understand probably an introduction to most technologies? So understanding who you want to have in your community is one of the first steps towards building it. And for this, something that we've seen has worked really good is building something we call your community persona. Your community persona is basically one person, one non-real person that you can use to define who is visiting or who's attending your events. So for example, there are three main components to understand your community persona. So first of all, understand the interests. Why are people coming to your events? What are they looking for? What's the necessity that this persona has? What are they struggling with, or what kind of content you think would help them to go from these struggles into something that could evolve? And understand their day-to-day. What does this persona do in their everyday life? Are they, I don't know, if they are going through Stack Overflow or learning how to code in a particular platform. Understanding the community persona is key for you to understand the needs, their interests, and how can you build value for your community. So let's go for a very basic example of a community persona. And this is something that we know happens in most of the student technical communities that are part of the GitHub Campus Experts program, where you have two main community personas. You have, in one side, the folks are very interested towards management and how can you build a team, or probably they already know how to build a team and they want to learn some tips and tricks about how to do it. Probably this management persona is not very well technically speaking, but they have really good people skills. So what you want to do with them is provide them with tools or with frameworks that will allow them to better do their management job. And at the same time, will help them grow towards what they look forward once they graduate. So probably they will end up being an engineering manager, or probably talking to potential clients and how they can manage the decision-making process. In the other hand, we notice there's the technical persona. And the technical persona is someone who is very much they want to be the 10x engineer, or they want to become very good developers. They don't like hanging out with other people. They only want to work and keep coding. So with the technical persona, you need to understand that what you're looking for is to excel in a particular language or framework. Probably they want to build a really good repository on GitHub, or have a very good profile on GitHub so that they can show some of the work that they've done. And if you think about it, the technical persona might live in, as I mentioned before, probably in Stack Overflow, or learning how to code in a learning platform. So now that we have these two community personas, how can we create a community that could either like help both, or help one of them to become better, or align to their interests and necessities? And for that, you will need to define a mission. A mission, I know some of you have seen this in your community or in your college or at work. And maybe if you are getting started in your career, you will see that missions are kind of like a phrase that most companies would have, but that do not generally convince anyone. But they're a key component to setting up a direction of where the community or the company or the school is heading to. So to define a mission, what we recommend is that you specify be very specific with a task that your community wants to achieve. And for this you need to analyze what is the goal of your community and focus on the today. If you focus on the tomorrow or in the future, then that's called a vision and not so much a mission. Now, why would people come to my community? And for that, we have, just to conclude everything that we've seen before, the book Get Together has built a very good framework for you to easily define everything that we mentioned before. So the purpose framework is a framework developed by Bailey Richardson in the Get Together book that I highly recommend if you're getting started into community building. And you need to define two things, the who and the why. So you just fill the blank with this framework and you will be set to a very good start with your community. So let's say, for example, our community brings together XYZ people so that we can do XYZ thing. Let's think about this for the GitHub Campus Expert program. So our community brings together technical student community leaders from across the globe so that we can support them in the process to create or grow these communities. And it sounds pretty simple, and it helps you out to clean probably overthinking about your mission and what you're going to be doing with your community. And it sounds pretty easy and achievable. So I highly recommend you to use the purpose framework to set up the first steps within your community. Now, before moving forward, I will not get too deep into these topics, but something that will be key as your community grows after you have launched is diversifying. At the beginning, most communities might look very homogeneous. So it can be that they are only male-oriented, or certain like social people or social or certain cultural people can be part of the community. But as your community grows, if you want to really have a community that brings new knowledge into it and avoid echo chambers, diversify the community and bring people that normally would not be part of these kind of events or kind of communities. Also, this will allow you to have a broader perspective about the topics being shared within your community, and this will help your community to learn new things that probably they wouldn't be able to learn otherwise. Second of all, take the first step. Most communities just stay as an idea and never get started. So taking the first step is one of the key components, and I know probably most here would be engineers or someone dedicated to science or engineering. But one of the problems that we have is that we overanalyze things. So until we get the perfect answer, we are not very much prompted into doing things. But the recommendation here is take the first step, even though if it's not perfect, at least you can start modifying and learning from the experience and building a better community afterwards. Now let's go to the second step that we mentioned, which is do things. Do things has to do with how you're bringing people together. And for this, we have three main objectives. Match your community interests with activities, find the core of the activities, and build a code of conduct. Now, you probably have gone through many events before. Do you know which ones make a great activity for your community and which ones probably were not perfect? In this time, I found 4 key components of great activities or great events for your community. And these are purpose alignment. How is this event aligned with your community interests and necessities? What problems are you solving with these activities? Then you need to allow participation. So if you share some way in which people can have or be part of a Q&A, or they can have even more participation towards a particular activity that you're holding in your community, this will allow people not only to get more involved and engage with the talk or with the community that you're building or the activity, but also it will start helping them to learn new things. Easy to repeat. This is more for the organizers. If you're able to make events who are easy to repeat, you will start getting into, you can start making the events mechanically and at the same time guarantee that there is a very good quality of events. Also, by making your events easy to repeat, there's a possibility that other people will start replicating your events. And if you're able to hold your community not only inside of your city or your school, you can start working with other people to repeat the same, to repeat or grow their communities or your community in their communities and grow the project that you currently have. Offer key takeaways from the activities and events that you're organizing. So what is the whole point of the event that you're organizing? What do you expect, or what do you and your community expect from going through these events? So for example, one great example of these components are hackathons, where the purpose is to gather people around, build projects, and do great work, or build these projects in a very short amount of time. You allow participation by having people create these projects and presenting them at the end. Even though hackathons are not necessarily easy to repeat, they are. We already have some sort of manual that you can follow in case you're interested in organizing your hackathon. Most people already know about this. And for example, if you analyze when the pandemic started, one of the things why we noticed a lot of people stop organizing hackathons was because absolutely no one or almost no one had experience on how to organize online events or online hackathons. Right now, people are starting to find these steps they can follow up, but generally speaking, now we are seeing more online hackathons. They have become the norm as the pandemic develops. Now, some key takeaways that you can have from hackathons: learning new skills and just getting to know also some other great folks. Now, as your community grows, making sure your community is safe for everyone is going to be a key component as well. And there's a very easy hack for this, and it's just build, or you can easily copy a code of conduct. If you are building your own or copying, what I would recommend you to do is to define the community. So at the beginning, set an introduction about the code of conduct, why it exists, and talk a little bit about the community, what's their objectives, their mission, and what are some of the events that you're looking forward to organize. Then talk about the accepted behaviors that your community can have. So for example, if you want to, I don't know, if it's a hackathon, you know that, I know, you want to have people having conversations about different topics, and that's okay. Unacceptable behaviors, what is something that you would not like people to talk about, or what are some of the topics that should not be mentioned in the community? So the code of conduct, for example, some of the unacceptable behaviors you can have is harassment, probably people being rude with others. So make sure that you mention in a list probably like 5 or 10 of them, so that people know or can understand the context of the unacceptable behaviors. And last but not least, how to report these incidents, and have a process have a clear process on how to report and what's going to be happening after you report an incident. With these 4 sections, you would have a very well code of conduct that anybody can apply, and making sure that people feel safe in your space. It's not only important to have a code of conduct, but also mentioning it at the beginning of your event so that people know where to find these resources in case they find or go through any incidents. Some other structures that we found is setting up some rules and structure for your community. So what can and can't be discussed, and in which spaces. So when you're having, for example, meetings, one of the things that probably most people hate about communities are going to meetings that do not provide any value. So we normally define, or what I've found about certain communities, that they define 3 different meetings or meeting types. One of them is brainstorming, one of them is informative, and the other one is discussing topics, or just finding new ways to do like things you already had. So the thing with meetings, you need to be very careful with how many meetings you have, and setting up very clear when you're going to be having these meetings. So for example, we normally, what we've seen is that having a launch meeting to inform everyone about what's going to be happening if you're organizing a hackathon, letting everybody know that what is going to be the timeline and when you need to start separating these tasks, having one-on-one meetings with people to follow up with how things are going forward with the event, and having these brainstorming sessions before launching so that you can understand and get all the information or multiple perspectives about a problem can be very useful. And making sure that you are very clear with what you're looking for or what you expect from these meetings before sending a meeting calendar invite will be key for people to know if there is something they can provide value with, and at the same time making sure that you're making the best use of their time for these meetings. Also define moderators. This is very important, not only for in-person events, but you can have the staffing part of the moderators, but in online environments, having moderators and making sure they are pretty visible for everyone to reach out and know where they are will be key for people to feel comfortable, not only about that there's someone who is going through these spaces and checking that everything is okay, but also in case they find an incident, they know who they can reach out to. Now, spread the word. Spread the word has to do with getting people to know more about the work that you're doing, and just telling a story. So first of all, we will need you to create a story about your community, build an identity, and celebrate the achievements. What's your community story? And when we mention the story, we mention it in 3 different ways. What's the past look like? Why was the community founded? Who founded it? And which were probably like the first things that you were doing. the present, what are you currently doing? What is the timeline looking like for some close events? And then you have the future, which is what do you look forward in a timeline, for example, in 3 to 5 years that your community, or what's the impact your community will have in that 3 to 5 years in the future. These stories, I recommend you to share these stories in most of the meetings so that people can know, for example, where you came from, or in case you're having new people being onboarded, making sure that they understand what the community is for and what you're looking forward in the future can really help them out to set a direction and understand as well how they can collaborate or how can they contribute to your community without probably doing things that you wouldn't normally do. The other piece of this is share member stories. And this has to do with communities that have very strong leaders. If probably you're a community leader, or if you are a community leader and you are the one who normally has the microphone or the spotlight, give time, certain time, give opportunities for others to share their stories about how the community helped them grow within the community, or how the community helped them grow professionally and personally. This will also help you recruit new people in your community so that they know how they can benefit from being part of it. Because being honest, being part of a community is something that can take a lot of time out of not only out of your daily schedule. Consider you're not only going through college or having sorry, someone muted me. But at the same time, share these stories so that, let's get back. Okay, share the stories of your community so that you can recruit new people. They could know how to benefit, and since people will start dedicating time to your community and the work that you're doing, they can know how they can benefit from dedicating so much time to the people to themselves.
So you're muted.
Yeah. So building an identity has to do with how can people see your community from the outside, and also how can you build some sort of image about your community that people can feel themselves that they are part of, and at the same time share with others. Some great examples of communities that have built a great identity, for example, Shell Hacks has been very well known for building a great marketing within their identity and their hackathon. The other part would be, for example, if you are able to provide badges for your community, that'd be great for other students to know that they belong to this community that you're building or that you have built. At the end, one of the key components or one of the things that we've noticed that people really enjoy about building an identity is being able to add some sort of identity to these badges or to these artifacts. So if you're able to allow people to add, for example, some of their styles to, I don't know, their stickers or to their patches, then you can start making sure that you can help others to feel more engaged with your community and at the same time build their identity in a community within an identity of a community. So they will have more personalization within your community and share what they're doing. Now, pass on the baton has to do with finding leaders that can support your community once you have graduated. Some of the reasons why most communities don't survive after the founder leaves is that there's no one to take over the community and find a way you can support their journey. This has to do with two main sections, I would say. The first one is find a qualified leader. And to find a qualified leader, future leaders of your community need to have three components. They need to be genuine. They need to have a genuine interest in your community. They must have great leadership skills and being great community managers. Something that we've noticed as well is that there's it's very common that you have community leaders, but not so many great community managers. And when you're organizing events, having people who know how to manage people and resources and everything that comes with organizing events can be a defining factor in the community being able to stay alive. On the other hand, support future leaders. So first of all, when you're looking for leaders, you'll need to define requirements. What are you looking for in a leader, and how does this leader looks like? Create a roadmap so that probably someone who recently joined your community might not be able to be the community leader. But if you can create a roadmap about some of the milestones these people or this person has to go through before becoming a leader, then you can make sure that the next generation of leaders or someone who takes over the community will have all the skills and the tools necessary to be a great leader of your community. And third of all, once you have defined who is going to be your leader or your future leader, and you have created this roadmap, invite this leader to be part of the activities being organized within your community so that they can start getting a hands-on experience on how the community is going to be organized and how things move forward, how to organize everything within your community and make sure that people stay engaged within it. And that's all that I had for today. So in conclusion, there's 4 main parts of any community. You need to set a clear foundation for your community. You need to start doing things. You need to make sure that you have someone to pass on the baton, and you need to speak out about the work that your community is doing. Something really cool that we've seen as well is the students are starting to write more blog posts about the work they're doing within their communities. So for example, if you just organize a hackathon, sharing on Dev the work that you did, which were the results of the hackathon, how many people attended, can be a great way not only to share the fact or celebrate the event that you recently organized, but at the same time, it will allow you to promote the work your community is doing. And in the future or in next iterations of the events that you will be organizing, you will have something you can share with sponsors so that they know that this is a legit community. And at the same time, it will help you to have some resources or extra resources you can send apart from, I don't know, only sending a sponsorship proposal. So that's all that I had for today. I don't know, Safna or Shamad, if there are like space for some questions or if you have some question, folks.
Yeah, thanks, John. And it's awesome. Guys, if you have any questions, you can ask or you can put the messages on the chat.
John, I have a question. We really have a lot of respect for you guys, especially for your GitHub education project. That was really an inspiring thing which you guys are doing. And my specific question is, in certain communities that we build up, what is a specific strategy you can provide, especially communities being run by students, to keep persistence of the community members constantly?
It depends. So those are 2 very different questions. To keep your community in terms of the attendees engaged, going back to analyze the persona and understand the interests and necessities, and also some of the struggles these folks are having, and how you can be part of that solution to those struggles, can be a great way to make sure that people stay in your community and stay engaged. Now, providing something that can also give you a lot of benefits is having a calendar, like a year calendar for all the events that you will be organizing. And making sure this calendar follows the school calendar is great. So for example, probably in February is a great month to start giving coding classes or interview classes or replicate interviews for jobs or internships, because most internships start in May. So probably February could be a good month to start giving those workshops. Now, to keep your community engaged within, let's say, like the staff of the community, something you can do is start distributing tasks within your community and trust them. As a community leader, something that can be challenging is just separating or distributing tasks within your staff. This can be that probably you do not trust all of them, but as a leader, my recommendation is distribute the tasks and make sure that you're following up with them, making sure that everybody is shipping what they have on their hands or what you have distributed to them, so that if these people prove themselves to be able to help out your community and they are doing a great job, then you can start separating those tasks or distributing those tasks to those people. And if it's not working, then there are two different things you can do. One of them is decrease the amount of tasks you're giving them. Probably you're saturating them. Or the other one is just like letting people go if they are not actively doing the work that you're distributing to them. Does that answer your question, Jude?
Answer. Thank
you. Hey. Can you give some tips for working with marginalized groups? Sure. So first, I want to set a little bit the context. Marginalized groups look very different depending on where you are from. So in let's say Mexico City, one of the marginalized groups are indigenous people. And first of all, my recommendation will be to have a clear understanding of who these marginalized groups are and where you can find them, and actively invite them to be part of the community. So a couple of years ago, we organized a student hackathon, and we found out about this group, about deaf students, and one of the struggles these students were having was that they were never invited to hackathons. So what we recommend you to do, what we did in that case is that we went to the school, we asked them and invited them more or less like personally to be part of the hackathon. We made sure that we have people who could do sign language during the event so that they could understand everything that was going on. And we had a great experience having them at the event. First of all, because it was their first time going to a hackathon, so they were very excited to be considered at least for one of these events. And in the other hand, it allowed other students to understand the context of this, that these other students or these marginalized groups were going through, not only in their personal life or in their everyday, but also in tech. So in case of these deaf students, one of the cool things that we learned from them was that they had their own signs for, imagine, how do you call a database in sign language? How do you call a framework or front end or back end with sign language? So having marginalized, so just to conclude that question, working with marginalized group, what you need to do is, first of all, get to know who these marginalized group are, where are them, invite them to your event, understand their needs, and then make sure that you comply with those needs. I think some of the greatest mistakes you can do is invite them and do not cover the needs that they might have. So if you're inviting people that have some disability or that use wheelchairs and you're not able to provide them with a space that is accessible, then you are just inviting them and then making them feel like worse, or making them feel that they're not considered in your community. So those are my recommendations for working with marginalized groups. We have another question about how the GitHub Campus Expert program selection progress works. That's a great question. It's changing for the next iteration of the event. We'll have more information during GitHub Universe. But there are some components that we'll look forward when we are reviewing applicants. One is the growth, the potential. We're also looking forward to understand the context and how can the GitHub Campus Expert program support their community, and how they can bring new things into the program as well. So as I mentioned in the beginning, we are changing the program selection process to have better understanding about the student profile. But I would say those are some of the key components that we review when we're having applicants. Also, something important to consider is that the GitHub Campus Expert program is a premium program, meaning that we don't have as many spaces as probably other programs have, and that makes it really challenging for us to select who will get into the program. But my recommendation would be to apply for it and make sure that you let us know the things that I just mentioned, and I'm sure you're going to have a good opportunity to be part of the program. Any other questions? Before we go, who here is part of a community? If you can leave that in chat, if you can put from which community you're from and what is your role in that community, that'd be really cool to discuss. Is there any new products to come to the Student Developer Pack? Yeah, so right now we are currently adding some new partners to the Student Developer Pack. We are also reviewing new ways to make sure that you folks have some resources to know how to use them. We understand that sometimes I felt the Student Developer Pack or people apply for it as a FOMO, like I need to get it because I'm a student, and if I don't get it right now, probably I would never get it. So what we want to help you folks to do is to have resources to know how to use the Student Developer Pack better to build projects and get the experience that probably you wouldn't be able to without the pack. Jude says he's from GitHub. He's a volunteer. That's awesome. He or she is a volunteer. Well, is he? Is there any limit number of campus experts per campus? So yeah, we are working in. So the GitHub Campus Expert program normally has one expert per campus, but that depends a lot on how big the student community is within that campus. So there are campuses that are very small, and that we have noticed that having one campus expert is more than enough. There are some campuses that have thousands of students, and sometimes it can be overwhelming for one campus expert to have so many requests from their communities. So some campuses might have more, but generally speaking, what we look for is to have one campus expert per campus. I know, Shamad and Savna, how have you felt about the Campus Expert program? And I don't know, share a little bit about your story as well.
Yeah, it's really a good program that it has actually helped to grow our community on today's date. So we were struggling to get some funds for organizing events of our campus. So once we become a campus expert, I mean, as well as me and Shamod is there. So we are not caring about facilitating things. So we have great backup from the Campus Expert program. So we get sponsorship. So we are focusing on how to organize new meetups in new topics, how to engage with students. So it was really good, and it was much helpful for us.
Cool. Well, I don't know if there are more questions here.
We are unable to apply for the GitHub Campus Expert program at your website, and when would the next phase of selection would be available?
Great question. Check GitHub Universe in December 8 to 10th. We'll be giving the new view of the program so that you know what are the requirements and what we're looking forward. Also about the new dates where the program will be opening. We'll have something we call batches, so students can apply and be part of a batch and go through training and get to the Campus Expert program.
So guys, any questions? If not, we can wind up the session. So thank you everyone who attended this event, and thank you so much, John, for the outstanding session and for your valuable time. The points, the knowledge you have given in this session is much helpful to move our community further. and it was awesome. And thanks again. We will see.
Hey, it was a pleasure getting to know more about your community. If you folks want to reach out to me, send me a tweet. I'm at Juan P. Flores in Twitter, and I try to respond as much as I can. But yeah, thank you so much for joining today.
Thank you. And guys, we will be uploading this recording video of this session on YouTube. So stay connected with our social media platforms. So see you all in the next webinar. Thanks for joining.
Have a good one. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye, Joel.